Hey guys, Pekin Wolf here, a North American challenger that's been within the competitive scene for quite a long time, and this is my video on the Kespa Cup GenG versus Griffin series. Griffin actually dominated this entire tournament. They were actually able to go undefeated during this entire tournament, but this video is actually only going over the series for the finals. Basically, Griffin just completely dominate GenG during this finals, and I just want to show off their individual play, but not only that, but a ton of macro play and drafting thought went into this, and I want to show off how good they are at doing these things. So this video is going to be going over every single aspect during that, and I'm actually going to put timestamps in the comments below, so if you actually don't want to go over draft or anything, I can go straight towards the macro play of every single game. So for anybody who actually doesn't really care about the drafting aspect of it, or any information about like what was strong during 824B, which is the patch that they were on, feel free to look inside the comments to go straight towards those things, because I actually didn't expect this video to be this long, and I just want to make sure that anybody who actually was interested in just listening to the macro play doesn't notice that the draft phase does last a bit long, and then they just exit out of the video before actually getting to the content they want to listen to. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoy it, and let's get started. The first things that we can go over is just champion picks in general for 824. So here's the list of the champions that were played during the tournament. Presence meaning how many times it was pick or banned during the tournament. So obviously champions with 100% presence are normally the OPs for this patch. So you can see Cassiopeia, Galio, Aurelia, Aatrox, Urgot, or almost always pick banned. I mean, we have Rakan in there too, just because it seems that he's a very safe pick with like very reliable engage and kind of fits into any team comp. So you can clearly see what's very strong here, but one of the biggest things is that they actually are very good at using these flex picks more than what the other teams seem to be playing. And they even have some champions that are not on this list that they can flex pick themselves. Also, one quick thing before going on to the actual draft phase, which is, if you notice, Cassiopeia has 2 times she was picked, and she has a 100% win rate, and that was actually during these finals. In the other games, every single series, except for this game, she was banned. So I have no idea why GenG didn't ban her this series. Like, maybe they, during the like 4 or 5 days that they got of scrims, they like practiced against it multiple times and they figured, hey, we're not going to ban it, because literally every single team, even when people weren't against Griffin, were banning Cassiopeia. So it's kind of weird that they didn't ban it 2 times during this series. So anyways, just something to point out. So going over the first set of bans here, it looks like GenG decides that they want to ban away the Galio, even though they have first pick, even though it's a very strong pick. In my opinion, I can even first pick it when I play competitive, but I guess there must be something that Griffin have played in the past, maybe inside scrims or something, so they just don't want to go against whatever might be a counter pick to that Galio pick. So besides that, they also banned Talia, which Tarzan played 1 time during the entire tournament and won on, but it's kind of odd that they banned it. There must be something going on inside the background, maybe inside scrims and stuff that we can't see, because he only played it 1 time during the entire tournament, so it's kind of odd that they would ban it out here without seeing that he was just completely crushing on it in the past. And then besides that, they banned out Jace, which was actually towards Sword, because Sword has actually played it 3 times during this tournament, and 2 times were versus Urgot. So as you can see, GenG first picked Urgot here because it was open, and it could be flex picked both top and mid, because flex picks are very, very strong inside of this current meta. And they don't want to go against Sword's Jace, which was counter picked towards the Urgot 2 times already, and it beat it. So they don't want Urgot to get counter picked here by the Jace, so they just ban it out to make it so if they pick Urgot, it's not going to get completely crapped on by Sword's Jace. And then on the other side, they ban out the Akali because it can be flex picked. And not only that, Akali is countered by Galio. So with Galio being already banned out, that means if they picked Akali on GenG's side, they can't counter pick it with Galio. So maybe they just don't want to deal with it that way. They ban out the versatility of Rakan, and then they ban out the triple flex of the Aatrox, because Aatrox is similar to Cassiopeia, but he can go jungle, top, or mid, which is just extremely strong. Triple flex is very OP and normally always permabanned, especially on purple side, but it seems that GenG just cannot play Cassiopeia or triple flex it, so they don't put high priority on it. Meanwhile, Griffin, with their super good players, can put it literally to any lane that they want, making it so their draft, I definitely think, is going into their favor already just by having that triple flex Cassiopeia that can go to any lane. So just looking at the overall draft so far, it looks like Urgot can be flex picked either top or mid, and then the Ezreal is just stronger versus Cassiopeia than a Lucian pick. Lucian actually has a horrible win rate versus Cassiopeia right now, so picking Lucian would be pretty bad, even though he's in a very good spot, because versus Cassiopeia he really struggles. The Sion pick actually can go top or mid again, so once again that is flex pickable, and then because the GenG had the first pick, that means that their next two picks gave Griffin the last pick, and they actually counterpicked the Tahm Kench with the Thresh. And I don't know if it's just because they're comfortable with it, because of course you can eat people out of the hook, but that's just what he wanted, so he gets a good counterpick off that he wanted there. And effectively, I definitely think that Griffin's draft so far is going better, with definitely looks like a winning bot lane. Cassiopeia and Thresh should beat the Ezreal and the Tahm Kench, and then with the Urgot not knowing who he is against yet, can also be counterpicked during the next phase. So for the second phase of bans, it looks like GenG just decided to ban out Chovy's very strong Aurelia pick and ban the Yasuo pick, something that's actually very good against Zoe, so that's probably why they picked it here, because it can't get counterpicked. But on Griffin's side, they banned out engaging junglers. I'm guessing they just figured that if they can't get a good engage off, I mean, and if you look at GenG's comp, they don't really have an engage comp. It's like a poke comp. They don't have any hard CC to bring a team back or like start a team fight very well. Urgot isn't the best engager in the game. I mean, he only has like a dash that's very easily dodgeable, and you have to do like a special trick. Even during the late game inside big team fights, it's pretty hard to pull off. So overall, I guess they just didn't want to go against anything engage. And then on Griffin's side, they were purple side, so they got to pick first. So they picked Victor here. And when they picked Victor, that means that it was once again flex pick. So once again, because it was a flex pick, they have Sion, Cassiopeia, and Victor all flex picked and can literally go to any lane. So all three lanes were unknown, and then GenG has to blind their mid laner because they don't know who they will be going against. Obviously, you can choose of the three champions which one you might be going against, but they don't know for sure which one it will be. And then they blind Nocturne. Once again, I don't know how strong Nocturne is, but I mean, they ban out so many champions because Lee Sin and Camille are up. I figured one of those would be picked, but they just don't decide to get it for some reason. And then Tarzan decides to counter with Kha'Zix. I definitely like the Kha'Zix pick here because it has very good potential to 1v1 the Nocturne later inside the game if he ever catches him out. That's what I've heard from many junglers before. Kha'Zix has very good 1v1 potential against many champions. And not only that, but his W slow is very convenient for team fighting, especially when you're trying to peel back. And it looks like Griffin's team comp is very good at peeling back and just doing front to back, because it looks like Griffin's team comp deals more damage and is easier to pull off inside team fights than GenG's, because to get Zoe to deal damage to the Griffin backline is going to be very difficult. Sion's just going to be in the front, just eating up all of her damage, and it's going to be very hard for her to play the game, basically, inside this draft. So before we jump into the game, let's just quickly go over how they did the swapping around. So they put Viper with the Cassiopeia bot, which is one of the best champions in the bot lane right now. She's actually rank 1 for being an AD carry in the bot lane. And not only that, but Cassio Q deals poison damage when you land it, and that's what she maxes first, and Tahm Kench W actually doesn't block it, so that means when she Qs Ezreal, if Tahm Kench eats Ezreal, you're not going to negate any damage. She's still going to be getting hit by the full Cassiopeia Q, so Tahm Kench is only good versus Thresh here. It's actually, in my opinion, probably weak versus Cassiopeia just because of that, because there's no way to dodge Cassiopeia damage of her Q, which she maxes first, so Ezreal's going to have a really bad time laning against her. And then they put Chovy mid in against Fly with the Zoe. So Sion versus Zoe, definitely, like in the early game, Sion probably won't have that much pressure, but as soon as he gets a little bit of MR, and once he gets some levels, like base levels up to level 9 with his Q, which he probably is maxing first, he's going to be able to just Q the wave every single time and probably just tank all of her abilities, but get the first push every time. So as long as he doesn't die in the early game, he actually will be able to just be a nuisance to Zoe, and she just won't be able to ever kill him without like an early kill or something like that. So that's definitely annoying for her. And then for top lane, Sword's gonna lose early versus Urgot, and he will outscale to the point that Urgot actually can't even lane versus him, because basically how Victor top lane works is once he gets to about 2 to 3 items, he can kite so well, and he has so much damage potential for kiting that you basically just can't beat him. Victor's a real lane bully when he starts getting items, but they did make him a lot weaker early on, so is going to lose early, and he maybe can even die early. But overall, I think Griffin's team comp is easier to pull off, has better late game potential, and GenG's, they do have Tahm Kench for like roaming around for level 6, so it looks like the best way to win, in my opinion, would be through roaming with Tahm Kench ulti and maybe picking off people with Nocturne ulti, because in 5v5 teamfight later in the game, it's going to be extremely hard to actually get onto the backline of Griffin without a really good pick, maybe if they have like good setup boards and stuff like that. So jumping into the first game, you can clearly see that top lane is getting pushed in, like I said, because Victor early on can't win, and same for mid lane, just because Zoe can wave clear much easier than Sion during the early game, and then bot lane is going to struggle a little bit versus the Cassiopeia because she just is a very strong laner right now, especially inside the bot lane, and not only that, Tahm Kench is almost a completely worthless pick in this scenario besides just being something that can get rid of Thresh Hook. And then for junglers, they don't really do anything special. Kha'Zix has a worse first clear than Nocturne, so this means that he needs to take an early recall, and he's going to be a little bit behind in experience and gold, but overall, I mean, there's nothing really special going on, and that's basically just how the matchup goes between the junglers. Lens gets an absolute disgusting hook on Ezreal, and then Cassiopeia, actually, she was very low mana here, but she was able to land a Q, auto attack, and an E off, and then Thresh ignited, and as I said, the Cassio Q, Corrupting Potion, Ignite, any damage over time abilities are going to stay on the person while he's inside of Tahm Kench, so he actually dies from that. So this is actually extremely bad because giving Cassio that early lead, I mean, it makes it so the teleport from Ruler, of course, is very poor, so all he was able to buy was a Cole here, so he's going to be pretty big non-factor during the early game now, because when you get behind this early in a lane that you're trying to farm out, it just means that it's going to take longer for you to be useful later on when you actually hit your power spikes, because Ezreal is definitely not a very strong early game champion, especially versus this duo bot that he's against. So because bot lane has so much pressure because of the initial kill, but also because they're champions, this means that there's no way for them to contest Dragon if Dragon is available, and Kha'Zix actually can solo the Dragon very easily when he is level 6. So as soon as he reaches level 6 here, he actually just solos the Dragon, and there's no way for them to really know because there's a pink ward on it, and it's kind of hard to put down vision when you're constantly under your tower as the Ezreal and the Tahm Kench, so that just gives the Griffin side a free Dragon just from their bot pressure. So when Griffin was taking the Dragon, the Nocturne was actually resetting and he going towards his top side because his blue buff is respawning. But they also see that blue buff is respawning on Griffin's side, on the bot side, which actually means that when Nocturne is top side, most likely Tarzan will be on the bot side, which actually opens up a window where maybe he can look for a top gank since he is level 6, where Tarzan won't be here to counter gank it because he's most likely taking his blue on the bot side. So they see a window of opportunity to go for a gank where it can't be counter ganked because they figure that he will be on the bot side doing that blue buff, and they successfully pull it off. So the next thing that happens is that GenG goes for Rift Herald. The reason being is because top can actually get priority over Victor at this point in the game, especially with his kill, but he's also just stronger earlier inside the game. And also the Nocturne actually used his sweeper to sweep vision around the river while walking towards the Rift Herald, so they know that there was no vision around it, so they just can immediately start it, and if someone comes, then they know that they don't know that they're actually on it, but they'll have to put down vision. So it's just a opportunity to use their top pressure to get something done. But because Tarzan was sitting inside the bush and Kuve face checks him, there actually becomes a fight top which Peanut actually can counter gank, and they do successfully catch Tarzan here where he turns around and for some reason fights. I'm not really sure why he even did turn around here, but maybe he could have even just like kept on walking away and then Peanut would have to follow up with Flash, so kind of confusing that he did turn back here. But overall, I'm not even sure if this was actually worth it for GenG, because they could have taken the Rift Herald for free, but instead, because Kuve didn't come over and help him with the Rift Herald, they instead don't get to do it right away. As I mentioned earlier, basically Griffin's going to have permanent bot side pressure for the entire laning phase up until the point the tower dies, most likely. So because of that, when the next dragon is about to respawn, he just goes and decides to take it. So as soon as this respawns, he's going to immediately take it. There's no way to contest it because bot will just always have first push. Not only that, they just have stronger team fight right now or not team fight, but skirmishing between the 3v3 if they do fight with their junglers. And Peanut decides to actually try to get the Rift Herald in return. But Sion is actually able to get the first push at this point because of his levels. He's actually able to just one-shot the wave with a QW, and maybe he uses E2, not really sure. But you can clearly see that he got the first push here, and because of that, he can just run over to the Rift alongside his support and his Kha'Zix going. So because the support roam bot, that means that now GenG has the prio bot lane, so maybe they can clear out some pinks, but overall they couldn't do the Rift immediately. But as soon as Thresh runs back bot lane here, they actually do start up the Rift again, and because they have top prio, they are able to finish it, because the only reason why they backed off there was because the Thresh was coming up, so they had numbers advantage because Tahm Kench was still bot. So as soon as he saw that the number advantage was gone and they have top pressure and they probably can win 2v2 and maybe 3v3 if Sion decides to engage, they can definitely win the skirmish. So Griffin just decides to give the Rift Herald. While this was all being done, Kha'Zix walks bot side because they want to get first bot tower here, and he's playing through a strong lane. He can't play through top lane, and playing through mid lane isn't really important at this point. I mean, it's Sion, he'll always be useful, so he does just run bot, and he does recall, but the enemy doesn't know he recalled. So GenG actually back off the tower because they're scared. They don't want to get dove here because they can, and the tower's really low. So they just decide to give the tower, and they try to actually get the top tower first, and they actually do. So GenG does get first tower, but overall it's a 1-for-1 tower trade, and Tarzan played it pretty smart by just going bot and then recalling, making it so they couldn't even contest the wave to make sure that the tower didn't even fall at all, but it would eventually fall in the first place. So after any towers are taken, normally lane swaps happen, and the reasoning behind it is normally because bot lane can hit the top tower on top side. Like, imagine Cassiopeia going top here, she can hit the top tower and she doesn't have to overextend. If she went bot, she would have to overextend to hit the tower. So that's the reasoning normally for lane swapping, but it looks like that they didn't do that this game, because you can see that they actually swapped their positioning for where they were running once Urgot showed. So I guess they wanted Cassiopeia against the Urgot here. I'm not really sure. Obviously, I don't have communications of what they were talking about in game, so I can't know for sure why they were doing it here, but a lane swap does happen, and Victor goes bot lane, and basically the next objective that's going to be happening isn't the top tower, but actually the Infernal Dragon that's coming up. So everyone's setting up deep vision for the Infernal Dragon and stuff like that. Unfortunately, Griffin can't defend their deep vision that they put down because Cassiopeia showed top, so GenG know that she's top, and then Urgot doesn't have to catch the bot wave yet, so that means he has time that he can help his team clear the vision before he has to go catch that bot wave. So the next thing that happens is that they actually send Sion top versus the Ezreal, and the reasoning is probably because firstly, Cassiopeia can have way more pressure mid lane than the Sion. She can wave clear better, she can harass with their Qs, like Sion can't do that, and Sion probably is completely fine versus Ezreal because Ezreal's probably throwing toothpicks at him at this point because Ezreal only has a Trinity Force, and even though Sion has literally no armor, I mean, all he has is a Glacial Shroud, but Ezreal is not going to be dealing any damage to this guy. What also happens is that Kha'Zix goes topside to look for Ezreal, maybe with the Sion, because if they find him, they probably can kill him, maybe they can chase him down, but because they go topside, and Jen doesn't know that they want topside here, but because they went topside, it's basically saying we're giving up this dragon, like 100%, unless we kill Ezreal, because that's the only way to do anything. So they took a risk on like looking for Ezreal there, but because they didn't find him, even though GenG doesn't know that they did go topside, they have really good vision setup. So that means as they walk in to get vision, because the dragon is respawning, they can look for poke, and they're actually able to poke out Thresh, and because they poke out Thresh, as soon as they see Sion topside, they just immediately start it, because that basically says, okay, we're not going to contest this because I have no TP on Sion, so that means I'm just giving it, I'm just going to go for this tower instead. So just because GenG set up very well with their pinks and stuff, and then Griffin go for a odd play of just looking for the Ezreal on the side lane and don't find him, they just give up the Inferno for free. So basically what happens next is Griffin just shows off how good all of them are mechanically and understanding what they need to do during a team fight to win it. So, I mean, all of these guys are very skilled at League of Legends, and you're going to see that inside this next team fight, just of how the team fight goes. So the team fight actually starts with just Thresh getting caught out by Zoe Bubble, and he doesn't want to take a lot of poke from the Zoe Bubble or die from it, so he actually uses his stopwatch. Now, because he uses stopwatch, the Tahm Kench actually overextends a little bit, and the Sion immediately ulties seeing that Tahm Kench is caught out, and goes for Tahm Kench because everybody else can get eaten by Tahm Kench and escape, so they go for the person that actually has the thing that makes it so he can't escape. Now, when this was happening, Nocturne actually got caught out by Kha'Zix on the side, where Tarzan immediately went in once he saw that Tahm Kench was running the opposite direction, meaning that the Tahm Kench can't help the Nocturne get out of the situation. And as I said, Kha'Zix just wins versus Nocturne if he gets the first jump. So there's nothing that the Nocturne can do this fight, and all he does is ulti and flash away from the Kha'Zix just barely surviving. Other small things that happen during this team fight are the Cassiopeia actually ultis when Zoe's going for a trouble bubble, or her paddle star, I mean. And because of that, you can see how good he is at understanding what Zoe is going for, because it was during her ulti when she was going in during that. And then not only that, but she was able to Zanya's the perfect time to dodge the Urgot ulti. And not only that, she doesn't even use her flash to get out of this. She takes the lantern, trusting that she's not going to get hit by any of the abilities of Jen on the way out. Just overall, a crazy team fight where all of them played extremely well and knowing what they had to do during the team fight, and then just showing off some crazy mechanics by barely living in multiple scenarios. So after the team fight, they decide to reset, and after everybody resets, there's a new Mountain Dragon coming back up, and GenG actually sets up pretty well. They were able to get down a pink ward and even take Scuttle Crab, and they go back mid because there's a new mid wave going in. And normally what happens is they in competitive, you would push this mid wave, and then you would immediately go to Dragon, and then someone would have to catch the mid wave, Cassiopeia, and she would be late to the fight, and then you would look to team fight. But GenG just don't go for it, maybe because their team comp, once again, is kind of weird. They don't have a really big frontline person that can go in. Like with Tahm Kench, he's not really a person to go in. Nocturne can go in alone, but I mean, he's going to be going straight onto a Sion and a Kha'Zix who can easily just leap away. So maybe just figured that they would not be able to win the team fight even with the first push, so they just give it up and don't even take mid tower. But overall, just giving up the dragon there, I figured maybe they could have looked to fight, because as the game goes longer and longer, I figured that it might get harder and harder to actually win, because Nocturne is going to continue falling off. So after getting the objective, they reset once again, and GenG actually do get the tower eventually, so they are able to get it, and then they probably think that they're going to reset now because they just got an objective. It's very normal for players to reset after getting objective, because Griffin got their reset first. So because of that, they actually just rush towards Baron, and they want to do it right away with their triple mountain, because I respect this so much, because so many competitive teams within North America don't do this. Like, just immediately start an objective when you think that a reset timer is going off, and they get a super amazing pick from it with no hesitation, flashing on the Nocturne that they figure is probably there alone because all the other people probably reset, because they took the tower. They were there for a long time. They're probably sitting on a lot of money, and they also, of course, are using mana during that entire time, so they weren't full mana, and they're able to get the pick off, which eventually leads towards the Baron, which is very easily taken, and they eventually just run away. The GenG try to like kind of run them down, but it's 4v5, and they can't really overcommit here, so there's not much that they can do. Everybody just runs away, as they should. There's no reason to team fight. They just got the objective. They're not that healthy. You should just leave. There's no reason to turn and fight a 4v5 when there's no point to. You're not going to get an objective out of it. So with the Baron buff, Griffin were actually able to take multiple towers here, and then as the next Infernal is spawning, they were playing around it, but Thresh got chunked out and had to recall, but he actually makes it back in time, in my opinion, to make it to contest this Infernal, but Griffin actually back off far enough that GenG actually just started, and were able to get it before Griffin even have a chance to get into teamfight. So they actually just lose out on getting that Infernal Dragon just by not respecting how fast GenG can do it even without any mountains. And the only thing to take away here, besides them losing the Infernal Dragon, is just look how much damage the Nocturne here does to the Victor. You can already see that Nocturne deals absolutely 0 damage to the Victor, and this is going to include everyone in this side of the game. He's not going to be able to kill the Kha'Zix. It's going to be too difficult to get on him, and it's going to be way too difficult to also get on the Cassiopeia, who has Zanya's, and it will always have Thresh next to her too. So you can already see the Nocturne is basically becoming an ulti bot at this point, and he's going to be a big non-factor as the game goes on. So what happens now is that since Baron buff is expired, they can't really siege anymore, so everyone's going to be going for the Baron buff that's coming up next. Because Griffin have triple mountain, they're very good at it. But basically what's going to happen is a Baron dance, and how Baron dances work is a special basically push-pull of waves from bot lane. So how it works is one team will have someone group with their team, so this time it's Urgot, so Urgot is grouping with his team, so that means they have to push right now, so the other team must pull away because the Victor is still bot lane. He needs to get pressure before they can come up and have Victor actually pressure because of the wave. So Victor actually gets to shove in, and the GenG gets to set up vision first because they're as 5 people. But as the bot lane is pushing, that means Urgot needs to go catch it, and now Victor was able to shove in very hard under the tower, which means that now he can group before the Urgot. So now it's their turn to push, so Griffin gets to push, and then GenG has to pull back. So it's basically a push-pull motion, kind of like the moon affecting ocean current of one person gets to go first, then the next person, depending on how often they get to shove out one person, and then as Victor comes groups, then Urgot gets to shove out, and then Victor would have to catch the bot wave. So Urgot was pushing in the bot wave, but Zoe actually takes a blast cone over the wall because she wanted blue buff, but she actually puts herself in a very dangerous situation, and Victor will be here first. So this could have ended up very bad just from taking that blast cone over the wall, because Victor is here way before Urgot. As you can see, Urgot still does not have teleport, and Urgot recalled and had to run from base. So this was a 4v5 for a while, so they're pretty lucky that Zoe didn't just get one shot here and she had a Zhonya's available to be able to get away from this situation. But overall, nothing came of it, and everyone just resets, and GenG is able to get back some of their vision again, while Griffin all reset together. So the next thing that happens is probably the most interesting macro-oriented thing that happens during this game, which is Victor is shoving out bot lane here, and while he's shoving out bot, someone needs to catch the wave. The thing is, Ezreal has TP, but he already used his teleport, so that means he can't be the one catching it, because if he goes bot, that means it couldn't become a 4v5 at Baron, because Victor can TP and Ezreal can't. So basically, what they need to do is send Urgot bot, but Urgot actually swapped his summoner spell for Ignite, which means that he can't actually use TP during this time. So what happens is, normally, a team, GenG, would then start Baron to make it so Griffin forces their TP because it's 4v5. But the thing is that Griffin is so tanky and their team comp is just so well-rounded, while GenG's is just very hard to engage with, means that they can't actually get onto the Baron. And then because they show that they were going to recall to prevent the Victor from taking the inhib, then Griffin just go onto the Baron and pretend that they're going to start it, thus making it so they take too long to save the inhibitor, and they actually lose the inhib here. And then what happens is Urgot finally channels his recall, and Griffin just immediately start the Baron. I mean, it does end up being a 50-50 though, because it's very easy for Nocturne just to walk in. And unfortunately, the Nocturne actually does steal it away from Griffin. So despite it having a very interesting macro-oriented, where they were able to actually abuse the fact that their team comp is just very well-rounded, and it's very hard for GenG's team comp to do stuff against Griffin's team comp at this point, they were not able to actually successfully get the Baron off of it, but they still did get the inhib. And also, because they were able to push away Griffin from the Baron, they were also able to pick up another Infernal Dragon, making it so they had triple Infernal this game. So what happens is one more team fight, and shockingly, it's actually Griffin who engages it when GenG actually have Baron still up. So they have Baron plus triple Infernal, and GenG are the ones getting engaged on, believe it or not, because Griffin actually see a window of opportunity, and maybe another factor. So I think the factors are, firstly, they noticed that Tahm Kench and Ezreal were a bit far up, and if they engage on them, that means that they can make them use their things to escape very early, like Ezreal E and Tahm Kench having to eat him. So having to use that very early is very nice inside of a team fight. But not only that, they also want to make sure that they're the ones engaging and not the other way around, because Nocturne, as you can see, will become very useless this team fight because they're the ones engaging, and Nocturne can't just go in nilly-willy and deal some damage on the backline. It just doesn't work like that. So just looking at this pause right here, you can see that Zoe does land a decent Q on Kha'Zix, but now she has nothing. Like, that's the issue. She is a burst mage, she uses her Q, and now she's done for this team fight for another 2 to 3 seconds until her next rotation is back up. Meanwhile, Cassiopeia can continue just harassing with her Q and then just continue eating people down and shredding through tanks. Also, if you noticed, the Nocturne is just sitting on the back. He can't even go in at this point. And not only that, but the Ezreal got chunked out earlier, and now he can't even really walk forward as hard as he could if he was full HP right now. The Victor is actually able to zone away the Zoe pretty well, and then what happens is Lehens lands a disgusting hook on the Ezreal, making it so they catch him. Tahm Kench tries to save him, but it's just too late, and once Ezreal dies, it's just over for them. There's no way that they can win this team fight, and they all just get cleaned up, and Griffin is able to win this game. So going into the next game, here is the first phase, and as you can see, they decided to go on the same sides again, and with GenG banning out the same picks of the Galio and the Jace once again, and this time changing it up to the Sion pick because they don't want to deal with it being flex picked again, and they didn't like it being inside the mid lane, and it was very unkillable. Meanwhile, on the other side, they got rid of the Urgot pick, and the Aatrox once again banned just because it can be triple flexed and it's very annoying. But once again, GenG just don't ban Cassiopeia, so they hand it over to Griffin's side, and they instead pick up Akali. Akali is a pretty strong champion, but she can be counterpicked, and it looks like after they got the Akali and the Ezreal together, Ezreal is a very safe pick, and it seems that Ruler has been definitely wanting to play it often, even though he just lost against Sword inside lane, so it might be a similar matchup as last game. But on the other side, after they picked that, they finished it off with the Victor once again and the Irelia. And Irelia is a very strong champion, except for that if you're she's very mechanically intensive to play at high elo, and I'm not very comfortable on it, but Chovy is an absolute monster on it, so we picked that. And they actually counterpicked with the Lysandra, which is pretty decent into Irelia, just because you have so much crowd control. It's a pretty safe lane overall. But Chovy is an absolute monster on it, so I mean, even though that I think that it is Lysandra favored for amount of skill that you need to actually be able to win the matchup, Chovy probably can still win pretty easily just because of how good he is. Moving on to the second phase of bans, what happens is they once again banned Zac on Griffin's side, and instead of banning the Engager Gragas, they banned the Nocturne. I'm guessing because they already have an Engager, they have Lysandra this game, so their Engage is much better than last game. Last time they had Nocturne, basically suicide diving in, and they have an Urgot who can't really, he's not an Engager, he's just a tanky bruiser. So this time they have Lysandra who can actually do the engaging on the team comp. Even Akali can get onto the back line much easier than an Urgot can. So I guess they just didn't want another thing that makes it so it's disorienting during team fights with banning out the Nocturne. And then on the other side, they once again ban out Taliyah. Not really sure once again why they're banning Taliyah, because Tarzan has played it only a couple times during this tournament, and it must be within scrims or something that we don't know. And apparently they did not like playing against Thresh last game when they had the Tahm Kench, so this time they banned Thresh. And also for why they also might be banning Zac on the Griffin side is Peanut played it one time during the tournament and won. And maybe once again inside scrims when they played against GenG, possibly Zac was a very strong pick during that. Now for actual champion picks that they chose, they went for the Sejuani with Irelia combo, which is very strong. It is a strong combo because basically Irelia Q will proc Sejuani passive, and then you can keep on autoing, and it's very easy to get the passive proc off that way. It's a relatively strong pick. She has a lot of crowd control, so she definitely fits the team for crowd control wise, being one of the only crowd control champions that looks like are meta right now inside the jungle. But overall, looks like they needed a tank on the team, so that's why he went for it. It looks like almost all their team comps have a tank no matter what. It's one person that does it. Sometimes it's Tarzan, sometimes it's Chovy. and sometimes it's sword. It doesn't really matter who does it, but it's always one person that is going to take the tank role. And unfortunately on GenG's side, they don't really have a tank. They do have Lissandra. She's not a tank though. She can make it so she's invulnerable and she can Zhonya's and stuff, but still not a full tank. So I do like Griffin's team comp better. I do like the mid matchup better for GenG just because I think Lissandra is much easier to play than Irelia, but because Griffin has Chovy and he's so good at it, I still think Griffin's team comp is better during this phase, and I still don't understand why they're not banning Cassiopeia and just giving it away when they already lost to it. So for where everybody went, they put the Irelia mid like I thought, and they put the Victor back top lane because it has probably an easier matchup against the Akali than the Lissandra, and not only that, but the Lissandra probably would struggle more against the Victor than it would the Irelia. So basically pretty standard matchups, they just go where I figured they would. So for the early game of this game, it's a little bit different than the last one, but nothing really interesting happened. So in the top side, Victor is going to beat Akali early on. It's melee versus ranged, and this matchup definitely is not Akali favored until maybe she gets Gunblade. She can actually heal back up some of the harass that Victor is giving her, but before then, Sejuani is mostly going to be looking for Lee Sin when she can, and she also wants to be able to just keep Irelia safe during the early game. So as you can see here, she actually finds Lee Sin and is able to smite away a camp from him, successfully getting a very nice steal off. But overall, she's mostly gonna be playing probably around just mid lane and probably bot lane. And as you can see, bot lane is the same exact matchup, except for this time instead of Thresh, it's Alistar. Alistar doesn't really go as well with Cassiopeia, but not only that, Cassiopeia went this time. She tried to harass a lot. Unfortunately, the harass didn't hit, and because she went low mana, that means that Ezreal has way more control this game, so he's actually able to farm it out and be able to not be in a super bad situation under tower. So the first real play that happens is when Fly is looking to reset. He wants to reset on this cannon wave, and he knows that Chovy wants to push out the wave, and it's going to take him a while to kill this cannon minion. So what he does is he actually calls for Peanut to come in to gank it, because he's going to TP on the cannon so Chovy can't kill it, and then they can look for a kill with Fly's level 6. The thing is that Chovy, being level 6 himself, wasn't really in that great of danger during this whole entire play, and Lee Sin isn't 6 himself, but Chovy also plays this extremely well. He firstly gets a disgusting cleanse on the Lissandra ulti, basically looking like it wasn't even used, and then not only that, but he Qs Lee Sin on the way out, and Lee Sin was actually Wing Lissandra during the whole entire Q out, so she actually was able to Q him very quickly, because if she did it only a quarter of a second later, she actually would have not gained any distance away from Lee Sin. So the next play that happens is actually where Fly walks into a pretty questionable scenario where Chovy is getting the first push mid here, and Sejuani actually recently showed on the ward bot side, and it looks like she was going towards Ocean Dragon, so they think that she's on Ocean Dragon right now. The thing is that she wasn't not actually on it, so they abuse that they see that Fly is coming in, and Tarzan walks around that brush right there, and because he actually can't see inside the brush, around the brush either, so not just inside but around it, he couldn't see Tarzan walking in, so he walks straight into two of them. So Fly actually gets engaged on and chain CC'd, and they just are able to punish him for that roam down where he thought that maybe they were on Ocean Dragon, and he has to actually burn flash away. So as Tahm Kench goes in, Lee Sin actually landed a Q and takes it for some reason, and I don't know why he did take it here, because Cassiopeia was actually roaming up during this entire time, and he just kind of disrespects that Sejuani can just walk away. What is he going to do? He already used kick on Alistar earlier, and because of that, actually triggers a situation where Chovy and Viper just completely pop off, with Viper landing his Q, his Miasma, and a flash ulti off, while Chovy lands a pretty good ulti, and he just burns everyone down and just shows off mechanics. He's able to successfully tower dive and get out with his life, just getting a huge lead now, just from one misplay from overextending their lead by just going onto the Sejuani when they should have just backed off. Because Chovy gets that gold lead, he's able to then pressure mid harder, which gives him the mid priority, which also is able to transition into the dragon. And it looks like bot also was able to get the first push, even though the lane looks relatively more even than last game. But mainly it was from just a mid priority that they just get a free dragon, which definitely helps out Cassiopeia too, because water dragon, just being able to regen your mana when you're doing tier build is extremely beneficial. It's almost like a mini blue buff, so that definitely helps out Victor and the Cassiopeia. So because Irelia was actually helping with the Ocean Dragon here, that means that little Lissandra was able to throw a Q down on this wave that was coming in because Irelia wasn't in the wave yet. She was helping out with Dragon. So because of that, that actually makes it so Lissandra can get the first push here, even though she was behind just because Irelia was busy doing something else. Because of that, they actually tried to transition into doing the Ocean Dragon because it looks like Kuve just has so much top pressure that he was able to roam down with his top pressure and clear out some wards and put down a pink of his own. So they just immediately started figuring, hey, maybe Sejuani is low and we have mid priority right here, so maybe we can do it without them knowing. But from good intuition of just playing competitive games, I know if I was Irelia in this case, I'd be like, hey guys, Lissandra went topside and the only thing that's up is Rift Herald. They might be on it. Can we contest it? And because of that, Alistar actually comes from base when he recalled and just comes out to help out. And Tarzan is actually able to steal away the Rift Herald. Not only that, but Alistar headbutts in to actually take the Rift Herald buff. So Lehens, was the person doing the headbutt in, not Tarzan, but he was able to steal it away, and because of that, it actually probably was worth it in my book. He was able to get Rift Herald, which can contribute getting first tower just for 1 death. So they were able to steal that away just from good intuition of knowing that they were going onto that Rift Herald, and it was a good look by GenG, but unfortunately it was just smited away. So the next play that happens is Sion looks for a bot gank, which I think is kind of odd because as you can see, he's going to land the Q, but he doesn't take it because it's Cassiopeia and a Alistar, and the Alistar can easily just press W on the guy when he goes in, and he can actually get outplayed by getting comboed by the Alistar. Then maybe Cassiopeia can ulti him if he's turned the wrong way. So I don't know really why he's playing around bot side during this time, because it looks like Kuve was actually pushing in Victor at this time, and I think that they actually can dive him if they both just use their ultis under tower, with Kuve tanking first and using Shroud to make it so it targets Lee Sin after Kuve tanks first. So just an odd gank, didn't really get anything from it, and I think that it would have been better if he was playing around topside here. So Lee Sin was actually helping bot lane here, and because that, Alistar went up through the river to mid lane to actually put down the Rift Herald. Probably because this means that if Lee Sin is to come to try to stop the Rift Herald from hitting this tower, he actually has to walk through Sejuani and Alistar, and Irelia has the first push here, which means that she can have first roam onto this, so that means that it's very hard for them to actually help with this Rift Herald. It's only Lissandra basically being able to hit it. And because of that, it actually gets the mid tower extremely low, and Irelia is actually able to take it a little bit later, so that just breaks open the entire game, because now Irelia is able to push very deeply and then roam for even longer times, because it takes it longer for the wave to actually crash. So because Irelia is so fed this game and she just took the mid tower, she's actually able to get first push almost every single time, and because of that, she is able to push very deeply, so it makes it so that they can get pretty good wards on the bottom side. So when the next dragon spawns, that actually means that they can't even contest it, and basically GenG just have to give it up for free, making it so Griffin are able to get another dragon just through mid prio alone. So at the 20-minute mark, they actually just lane swap their bot lane to the top lane because their Baron is up and they do have Mountain Dragon, and that's what they want to play for. Playing for bot tower at this point doesn't really matter. Baron is just a way more important objective at this time. So they want to put the people with teleport bot lane instead. So GenG send down Lissandra inside the bot lane, and they send Victor in the bot lane to match her, making it so they have the teleports in the bot lane and they can play around this Baron. So when you have a lane that is very strong, you normally can play through that lane because they're going to get a priority inside of their lane. So as you can see here, Chovy is able to push up the mid lane, and then every single time that he pushes up the mid lane, he's able to do it before the enemies are actually able to do it themselves. That means that he's able to walk in to help his team get vision on the top side while the enemy is still catching the mid wave, making it so they can just get something out of it. So the first time they might get vision, but the next time something else might happen. So he's just going to continue pushing mid every single time a wave comes, and then he goes back top and tries to make a play happen. So as you can see, he tries to make a play happen here, but nothing happens. As the new wave is coming back in, he'll go back mid and he's going to shove, and because he's just so strong at this point, no one can contest his shove. So he's going to get first a shove again and then just go straight back into the top lane and try it again. Doing this with rapid succession over and over again will eventually yield something coming out of it. So this time they see that Lissandra is mid and they're going to be late to the rotate. Because they're going to be late to the rotate, that means that as this wave is crashing, which they crash at the perfect moment with Viper, Ezreal needs to back away from the tower, otherwise he risks getting dove. So then they're able to use the mid lane priority through 3 waves. He did it back and forth 3 times, eventually making it so they can take this top tower without even having to teamfight over it. So because Griffin actually send 4 people top here, they do have a Tahm Kench on GenG side, and what they do is they actually send the Tahm Kench mid with Lee Sin to actually pressure the mid lane tower, because it's going to take Griffin a longer time to actually rotate back to the mid lane. So they actually just wanted to pressure mid lane tower here, but they actually see that Sword was rotating over and they actually want to collapse on him instead, so they do go on him. But as you can see, Lissandra deals 0 damage to this guy. Sword has Abyssal Mask and Merc Treads at this point, so that means he has a lot of MR, and Lissandra just doesn't have any penetration at this point. All she has is Merc Treads herself. She doesn't even have Sork Boots, so until she builds Void Staff in this game, she's going to be extremely weak versus any of the players on the opposing team. So just Griffin's team comp have better spikes at this point because there's so much MR on Griffin's side. I mean, it's going to be very hard for Lissandra to do anything besides just be a crowd control bot and hope that her team is able to follow up. But not only that, Cuvée is going to be pretty weak until he gets penetration himself. So with this big power spike, Griffin is going to be winning most of these team fights around the game until they're actually able to build that penetration. So the best teams at League of Legends understand how to coordinate together to make sure that they can get the most out of every single recall. And that actually happens when you actually recall together. So as you can see, 3 of them all recall here, all to get more items or restock on their pink wards and buy key items that they might have had. Because of that, they all can pressure on the map exactly at the same time, and it's not just, hey guys, can you wait for a second? I need to buy this item, but you guys can do something, but you actually can't do anything because you have to wait for the person to recall. So because they all recall together, they're able to get back onto the map, and as you can see, Ezreal actually has a tier, but he's sitting on a lot of money right now, and he needs to recall himself. Now, because Griffin were able to all reset together, that means they're all ready to make a play happen because they all don't need to be like, hey, I need to reset here and etc. So because they're all ready to make a play happen, that means they can abuse someone recalling, and they aren't just thinking to themselves, hey, Ezreal was sitting on 2.3k here, so he probably reset, because players don't actually know how much gold someone might have, but they might be thinking, hey, he did have a lot of time that he spent in lane and didn't recall for a while, so he might have went to buy an item. But the more important thing is that when they were shoving up mid lane before, Ezreal was always catching the wave, and then suddenly he's not here to catch the wave. So that probably means that he actually reset. Because he reset, Griffin decides to, hey, let's just start the Baron. If they come, maybe we can turn, but if we get it low enough, we might be able to finish it and just zone away the Lee Sin. And that's exactly what they do. Because Griffin started it so quickly, that means by the time Lee Sin actually sees that they're on it, it's actually too late. The Baron is actually super low at this point, and with Alistar being able to just zone away the Lee Sin from the Smite Steal, they're able to pick it up and actually force GenG into a very bad teamfight situation. Griffin did play this teamfight pretty well, but nothing really interesting that needs to be slow-mode or anything. Basically, all that happened was Chovy landed a good stun and then ulti onto the Tahm Kench and Ezreal, and then he's just able to follow the Ezreal using his Qs, and he deals so much damage at this point, and Ezreal doesn't have enough time to scale to become a big menace this game because he doesn't even have his double tier stacked items yet. But because Griffin also have that double magic resist that I was talking about, the Lissandra doesn't have a Void Staff yet, so she's basically a non-factor, and then just overall their team comp is much easier as a wombo combo team, and Akali, who is an assassin, she does have a Void Staff at this moment, but she just wasn't able to get onto the backline, and even then it would be very hard for her to actually just straight up kill someone. So with this Baron, after this just team fight that happens, they were actually able to just end the game here, winning the game. So this was a very quick game, and it looks like they went from just having a tiny lead into just ending the game very quickly, showing off once again through good draft and good play that they are a just team to be reckoned with. So looking at Game 3's draft for the first phase, you can see that GenG once again went for the Galio ban for some reason. Like, I don't know why they did it on blue side in the first place, but I guess they have to ban it on purple side because you don't want the Griffin to first pick it. But why are they even banning it on blue side the prior 2 games? I have no idea. Then they also banned the Aatrox and the Cassiopeia because they want to make sure that it can't be triple flex. They have to get rid of triple flex on purple side. It's pretty normal bans to ban Cassiopeia and Aatrox almost every single game on purple because they're both very easily first picked and can be flex picked anywhere. Then on Griffin's side, it looks like they just banned the very consistent supports, and then they get rid of the Kali because it can be flex picked and they don't want to play against it. And overall, the ban phase looks pretty standard to me for what they can get, and Griffin just goes for a first pick Urgot. So GenG actually answers back with a bot lane that they've played every single time during this entire series, which is the Ezreal and the Tahm Kench. So they literally go for the same exact bot lane, even though they have not found any success on it during the series. And after that pick, Griffin answer back with Braum, which is a very good support right now. He's very consistent. He has great team fighting, probably better than Tahm Kench for sure. And he's just I would say, one of the best supports right now for the bot lane besides Rakan and Alistar. And then they also pick the Jace, which can be triple flex. So once again, they are triple flexing with the Jace. They are probably double flexing with the Urgot. So Urgot can be top mid, and then Jace can literally be anywhere. So once again, they have no idea where Jace is going, and Griffin just is so good at abusing the fact that GenG cannot flex well, and Griffin can, and it just makes drafting so hard for them. Going into the second ban phase, we can see that GenG ban out the Lucian, which I think is pretty smart because Viper has shown that he is very good on Lucian, has good win rate, and not only that, but Ezreal Tahm Kench is a relatively easy lane for the Lucian, and Lucian Braum is an extremely good lane. It is probably one of the best lanes in the game right now. Just Lucian Braum has an incredible synergy together, so they just don't want to go against that. But then they ban the Taliyah, and that's the confusing part for me. I don't know why they're banning Taliyah when they just showed that Chovy is so good at Irelia, and Irelia is extremely good versus Zoe. During the first game, GenG actually banned Irelia, making it so when they did pick the Zoe, it wasn't actually picked. But this game, they're actually leaving Irelia open, which just shocks me because Irelia can actually roll over Zoe if played correctly, and Chovy is extremely good at her. So I don't really understand the bans on GenG's side for the Taliyah. And then on Griffin's side, they ban away the Zac because obviously Peanut has showed that he was good on it during one game. But not only that, they just don't want to have hard engage versus their team combo looks like. They don't want to have any wombo combo because that's what they seem to always draft around. They want to have multiple either bruisers or skirmishers or people with AoE. And then they also ban the Victor just because Victor does eventually outscale Urgot and they don't want to deal with that. Going ahead to the actual draft phase where they pick everything, we can see that they did go for their Irelia versus Zoe, so that's going to be extremely hard for them. GenG actually go for the Poppy pick. That just seems kind of like a disengage. It actually cannot really beat Urgot 1v1. I definitely think Urgot wins the matchup nearly all points inside the game. But she is a tank and a frontliner, and she has pretty good disengage, so that definitely helps out for their poke. And they do go for the Gragas, so they do have better engage this time, and they also do have poke. The only problem is that Griffin had Braum, and Braum is extremely good versus poke because of his E, but not only that, but his E also blocks Gragas ulti, which is extremely good to make it so they also can't look for picks that well with Gragas. So overall, Griffin's team comp looks more well-rounded again. I definitely think that Griffin's team comp has easier crowd control, and they also have picks that are basically counter picks towards certain champions, like Braum towards Gragas and Braum towards poke. And then Tahm Kench, I just keep on saying that he's not really doing anything with his global ulti, so I once again just put it into Griffin's favor for the draft once again, especially with also Urgot probably having priority during the mid game where people have 2 items or so, because I don't think Poppy can actually lane versus him at that point very easily. So one of the first things that I noticed that happened during this game was I noticed that the Tahm Kench steps up aggressively, and I don't know why he actually steps up this far. There is no reason to be up this far against a Braum and Jace lane, which I think probably win versus Ezreal and Tahm Kench at least early on. It's very easy for Braum to just go into a minion here and Q him, which actually happens, but unfortunately the camera goes away so you can't see what happened. But you can see that Tahm Kench actually has to use his cleanse there, and he definitely gets very low from it, so I'm not really sure why he was positioning him so far up, especially because they know that their teammate, Gragas, is mid, and he showed, which is possibility why Griffin immediately went in. They're like, okay, so if Peanut is here, then obviously maybe he will fight us and we're going to lose. But since we see that Peanut's mid lane, we can immediately go in. There's no risk. We know that we win 2v2 here and this guy's overextending, so let's just get a good trade-off and get a advantage from that. Just a tiny bit later, there actually enters this scenario, which I think is probably one of the biggest mistakes that GenG actually makes. So right here, you can clearly see that there is a bigger wave on Griffin's side pushing towards GenG's side because Jace actually just queued this minion wave, killed 2 casters here because he's actually looking to recall. You can see that he has 0 mana. I mean, Ezreal's pretty low mana himself, Braum is extremely low, and Tahm Kench is low. So that means that they want to look for a reset here, and you can see that he has heal, not DP. For some reason, GenG actually tried to shove this out rather than just recalling themselves. Now, basically, what would happen is if they just backed off and recalled themselves while Jace is recalling, there's no way that Braum can shove in with this new wave coming in quick enough that it would actually crash into the tower. So that means if they just backed off this wave right now and just recalled, they would have a slow pushing wave going directly to them. So that means that since it's slow pushing towards them, the blue side creeps would be killing the red side creeps, making it so you're denying creeps that Jace can get. But because they actually try to shove it out, Braum actually stops his recall and is able to freeze the wave, and Ezreal can't shove out because he's too and Tahm Kench just can't do anything to prevent the Braum from freezing this wave. This actually creates a huge gap in CS and experience because now Jace is coming back into the lane with a very good purchase, and now he's going to have a big wave that he's going to soak up that's going to give him more gold. But mostly the biggest thing here is just having a big CS lead will give you so much experience more than the other opponent. So because of that, he's going to level up, and I'm going to show you it's going to be even more than you might expect. So firstly, we see that Jace is leveled 5 here, coming back in the lane, and Ruler is level 4, so already he does have a experience lead in this situation, and he gets a big chunk off. So when I freeze it here, the thing to look at is that there are 4 more caster creeps on the blue side than the red side. With 1 creep wave coming in already, that means that it's 6 creeps from the wave, 6 creeps on the blue side, plus the 4 caster creeps. So that means that there are 4 more caster creeps on the blue side than the red side. So Ezreal effectively can get 4 more caster creeps worth of experience than Jace at this point, so that will catch him back up in experience at least a little bit. But we're going to be looking at how far behind he actually is in experience from this whole entire freeze. So we're going to go ahead and see what happens when he finally reaches level 5, because we can see Jace's experience bar at the bottom left. So when Ezreal reaches level 5, we can see if the wave is even, and if the wave is even at that point, that means that Ezreal is extremely far behind in a certain amount of experience. So if we just look here, the minions are finally even, and Ezreal just reached level 5 off 2 melee creep, so he is 1 melee creep in on level 5, so just barely over level 5 right now. And then we can see Jace is basically halfway to level 6, so Jace is effectively up half a level on Ezreal just from this freeze alone. If Ezreal was the person to freeze on this, then he would also be up half a level, so you can see how important it is to actually time your recalls effectively, and Ezreal and Tahm Kench really screwed up with their recall timing, making it so they're behind half of a level. But not only that, but Jace is ahead by 2 CS, which means that he took that giant freeze of about 8 creeps, and he only got 2 CS from it ahead of Ezreal. So that means Ezreal would actually be ahead by a lot of creeps right now, because Jace was actually behind creeps before this whole entire thing happened. So as you can see, it's just very important to do your recall timing and correctly, and they just really messed up on GenG's side, making it so they just have a disadvantage in the bot lane all by themselves. So while that whole entire bot thing was happening, there was actually some jungle rooting going on where Tarzan does his raptors, and there's some pretty deep vision within his jungle, and he actually gets spotted out. And because he gets spotted out, they see him going towards his golems here, and because they know that he's going towards his golems here, they see that blue buff is respawning. So that means that the Gragas can actually contest it, knowing that Sejuani is actually on golems right now, and she's going to be too late to make it to this blue buff before he can take it. Sejuani, meanwhile, is going to play around her strong side, which is her bot side right now. They are doing pretty well inside this lane, so she's just going to go inside the bot side jungle and see what she can find, whether it be camps or anything. Now, when you play competitively, you always play to the side of your jungler, and you normally ask for mid lane. I'm like, hey, can we clear this vision? I need you to help me because I don't want to get ganked by the jungler, and that's what people normally do. Now, Zoe just completely disrespects that she has to give up her vision here because Tarzan is playing on the bot side of the map, and has to burn her cleanse just because she just doesn't respect that Tarzan could be nearby, not just giving up the pink ward straight away. But she doesn't just lose her cleanse, because Chovy and basically all of Griffin are so good at knowing what Zoe's about to do, and when she portal jumps in, Chovy knows she's about to do it and throws down his stun, effectively landing on her, and then just immediately with no hesitation ultis her, and she flashes away just to make sure that she can't get dove under tower or something, because Chovy can just cleanse out of the sleepy if that happens. Now, just all of Griffin does this so often, and I'm shocked by how good they are at doing this against Zoe's, and because of that, now Zoe has no summoners, and when Zoe has no summoners mid versus an Irelia who has both summoners, that basically means that when Irelia has her next ulti up, it's basically a guaranteed death for the Zoe, so that's really bad luck for her. And once again, with no hesitation, they immediately start an objective. That's basically been the name of the game for Griffin every single time. When they get a lead somewhere, they immediately will start doing something. So because Zoe has no summoners and she's half HP, they immediately start the Infernal Dragon, and it will be a 50-50 because the Gragas is coming in, but we're also going to see the Braum being so effective here versus the poke, but not only that, but we're going to see the Gragas ulti Braum interaction. So firstly, Braum is able to block the Zoe Q, dealing no damage. Then when Gragas tries to ulti to deal some damage to the dragon, it completely blocks it, just knocking back the Braum instead. When Gragas ulti hits Braum, it actually just makes it so it explodes on Braum instead and doesn't travel any further, so effectively it just completely gets rid of the ulti and only hits Braum there. Now, not only that, but there is a little bit of fighting, but in the end, no one is able to actually die here. In fact, even Lehens is able to get out eventually by flashing and going onto Sejuani, because Griffin just doesn't leave a man behind when they know that they actually can get out. They definitely know their limits of their champions, and it definitely shows inside all of their gameplay. What happens next is Tahm Kench 1 just completely disrespects the Braum Jace lane, Braum landing Q and immediately ulting, but I don't know why Tahm Kench is even stepping up this far inside of the lane. Like, firstly, he is under the enemy tower, which means it's a longer lane, so they could chase him down here, and they are able to finish him off with the Shock Blast, but honestly, just think about what you would do as the Tahm Kench here if you were this far up in lane. It's basically saying if you get landed on by a Braum Q, you are basically guaranteed dead. How are you ever going to get away from it? So, just really questionable laning from the Tahm Kench. I don't know why he ever steps up this far. While that bot play was happening, Zoe actually got solo killed in the mid lane because, as I explained, when Zoe has no flash, it's extremely hard for her to do anything versus the Irelia. The Irelia, after landing her stun, can easily just jump on her, land her ulti. There's no way for the Zoe to ulti away or anything because she'll come straight back into the Irelia, who can just auto attack her down. So successfully he gets the solo kill off, especially just using the cleanse. When he got sleepy'd, he can just pop the cleanse before it even makes her fall asleep, making it so she actually can't even get CC during this whole entire time, just being able to kill away the Zoe pretty freely. So because Zoe did die in the mid lane, they just immediately start up the Rift Herald, figuring that it's going to take Zoe too long to get there. But not only that, but Urgot does look like he has pretty good pressure inside the top lane for this play too. Unfortunately, the GenG do have Tahm Kench though, so as they bring in Tahm Kench, they actually turn it into a numbers fight, finally showing what Tahm Kench's strength is, which is making a fight where you think that you're going to have numbers, but you actually don't, because it's a 4v4 here, and they thought Zoe wasn't going to be able to get here. Unfortunately, they aren't able to take the Rift, and Chovy actually is able to dodge multiple skill shots on the way out after taking Rift Herald, almost living through a great escape, basically, away from all these players. So he definitely shows off his mechanics here and plays through the runaway very well. Like, he is able to burn multiple flashes here from Peanut, who actually tried to flash to catch him and wasn't able to, and then Ezreal actually catches him with the flash, and Krugs actually finish him off. So it took a group effort to be able to kill Chovy there, and just showing off how good he is at League of Legends once again. So after the Ezreal is able to kill the Irelia, he actually is able to take some armor plating bot lane, and then he eventually does recall. Unfortunately, I can't really show it because they put a replay up during this time, but he recalls because he's probably sitting on a lot of money, and Griffin know that pretty well, and it's right when Dragon is spawning, so that means that Sejuani just goes over and solos it immediately, knowing that Ezreal will reset eventually, and they just knew the reset timer of the Ezreal, so they're able to get the Dragon for free. While this was all happening, Urgot is able to get the solo kill because as soon as this guy builds Black Cleaver, Poppy just has a very hard time versus him. She even stopwatched the ulti, but he just has too much percent damage on his legs, and just Poppy doesn't have a good time versus this lane. And then even while that's happening, Chovy decides to Rift Herald mid, so there's just plays going on all over the map where they're getting Dragon, they're getting solo kills, they're getting towers, and then just Fly just completely disrespects Irelia and steps up for no reason and has to burn his flash just for overextending near her. You can tell that GenG at this point are getting pretty flustered. I mean, Fly is pretty frustrated probably with how his lane is going, and that was just a pretty uncommon mistake, especially for professional play. In that scenario, he might as well just let the Rift Herald crash. I don't know why he puts himself in a scenario where he actually can get engaged on by Aurelia, but I can understand that GenG is probably just frustrated that they just seem to not be able to make a play anywhere on the map during most of these games. So after this point, this is when the game starts just completely breaking open despite only GenG being down 1000 gold, which is very small. In fact, it's actually less than 1000 gold. So Sword is actually just destroying top lane and almost is able to get a solo kill off. And then mid lane, because she has no flash mid lane, the Sejuani just plays around it because they actually want to dive her. Meanwhile, Gragas went bot and they don't know if he's mid or bot, but they probably know that they can 2v2 mid relatively easily, and then they see that the bot lane is bot, so that means that it would only be 2v2 mid. So because Zoe has no flash, as soon as they land the stun on her, it's very easy to just burst her down, and then they juggle the tower aggro so well, and they basically just smurf all over GenG here, because they're able to weave in and out of the tower aggro, and then as soon as the final tower shot that would kill Tarzan is supposed to kill him, he actually is able to stopwatch and flash away from the Poppy heroic charge, making it so he survives. But not only that, he sidesteps the Ezreal ulti, just absolutely smurfs all over these guys. I would be pretty demoralized if I was GenG in this point, but once again, I've said it many times before, Griffin just showing off mechanics on every single player on the team. So I'm just going to go ahead to the point where basically the game starts breaking apart. At this point, they're going to be setting up around Baron, and the Urgot actually TP'd back into the top side after Jace died, and he is going to group because Poppy still needs to shove up bot, so she's going to be kind of late to this whole entire top side of the map, so that means that they have numbers advantage up here. So they're just going to sit on their vision that they already have down. That makes it so the enemy team can't see where the Baron is, if it's being taken or not, which means that Peanut wants to actually get vision of it, and they're going to be looking for a pick during this time. So Peanut face checks, and he's not doing it with his team. So at this point, I think it's kind of odd. You should definitely be playing around your teammates at this point. They maybe can push out mid first, and then after they push out mid, he can have Tom Kench come group with him, and then if he gets engaged on like this, Tom Kench would be behind him, and he can get eaten, and then they can just run away together and try to get away from the whole entire thing. But he's going in blind alone here and gets caught out and dies for it. So Griffin actually go for a Baron here. Except for that, a kind of skirmish breaks out and nothing really comes of it. But once again, Griffin is in the driver's seat here. Even though GenG is holding on and they did make it so they didn't take the Baron, Griffin is trying to make the proactive plays, and GenG is not making any proactive plays. In fact, inside most of this tournament, there were some early game GenG plays, but overall, I would say Griffin was almost always inside the driver's seat to be making these proactive plays, while GenG is kind of just reactive and trying to make sure that they don't lose. So they're playing to not lose rather than playing to win with their team comp. So nothing really happens for a bit after that whole entire fiasco around Baron. They just wait for the next dragon to come up, and what they do is they just give up their topside vision because they had very deep topside vision during this time. So they give it up and let the firstly, there's no way that GenG can really contest this, but it's basically like a trade. They're trading, we're going to take dragon for our vision that we already have topside, and we'll just get the vision after the dragon. I mean, this dragon is going to help them with the Baron inside the first place, but as you can see, GenG decides to clear the vision because they know they can't contest, but it's the perfect opportunity for when they are doing Baron on Griffin's side. They can clear some of the vision that Griffin have down, making it so they will have to get the vision back over again, so maybe they can look for a pick or something. Meanwhile, you can see once again Poppy is just struggling very hard versus this Urgot. I mean, the Urgot's extremely strong right now. There's not much that she can do in lane versus him, so he's going to have prio almost every single time versus her, and even if Peanut comes, it's going to take a very long time to kill this guy, and they might not even be able to kill him, to be honest. Maybe he could even 1v2 if he was able to use his legs correctly, and it's just making it so, as you can see, the draft phase just kind of went in the favor of Griffin once again, and I don't think that GenG really plays to their team comp very well by abusing the Tom Kench ulti to maybe look for picks and stuff, and just not really getting big leads out of what they have been playing for the entire tournament, because they've been playing Ezreal and Tom Kench the entire tournament, and they played Zoe 2 times now, but it's just not finding any success. So after the dragon, they're definitely going to be setting up for the Baron once again, and what they actually do is they're going to be playing through topside because Chovy is always going to get the first push on Zoe. She can't really contest the wave. So what happens is Chovy gets the first push, and then they walk in together just a little bit, but the reason why they don't go in all the way is because they see Poppy is coming up on a ward, and they don't want to do a 4v5 because Sword actually doesn't have his TP yet. So during this time, they just wait for the next wave to come in, and they're going to wait for Poppy to show bot. When she shows bot, then they'll walk in with their lead, and then they'll actually be able to know if Poppy is going to TP, and they can even cancel it if she does. So you can see on this next wave, they walk into the jungle because they can see Zoe is top, they see Poppy is bot, and they're grouped as two, and they know that they can win basically versus everyone at this point. I mean, it's Irelia and Sejuani. Irelia is extremely strong. Sejuani just makes Irelia even stronger with her passive. So they just walk in to get very good vision and maybe even look for pick and a potential kill because they catch Gragas out here and they're able to chunk him a little bit. So right now their play is still around the Baron, and after they get the vision down around it, and not only that but clear their vision of GenG's side, that means that now they just want to start the Baron immediately after they have Jace shove up mid. So basically how this play works is after they have the vision down, that means that they're going to be able to see GenG walk in to try to contest this. Because they're able to see if they're going to contest it when they're already on it, that means that they can decide whether, hey guys, the Baron's low enough that we can finish it. All you have to do is everybody use your ulti on Gragas to make sure he can't smite steal it away. Or if he was able to come earlier, then they all just back off. And the only thing that happens is, as you can see, Sejuani does take a little bit of damage from the Baron. But let's say that GenG actually were able to contest this and they walked over very quickly. Everyone just backs off. So they might lose some vision from it, but overall they won't miss anything from it. So it's basically a play where you have two separate scenarios, and it's like if our enemy is too slow to react, we get something for free. And if they do react, then they have to be very quick on it, and maybe they will even walk into a bad scenario because they don't know if you're sitting inside of a brush actually looking for a pick or if you're actually on the Baron. So it puts them into a unfavorable situation of like, guys, we need to check this Baron, but I don't want to get caught. And then because of that hesitation, it can create a opening to get the Baron, which is exactly what Griffin were able to do. So after getting that Baron, they actually set up a 1-3-1, which having So after getting that Baron, they actually set up a 1-3-1, which is just having your super strong split pushers on the side waves and having your three other people, normally the AD carry and the support and the jungler in the mid lane, because normally the split pushers are the top laner and the mid laner, and basically no one can really match Irelia and Urgot at this point. The Urgot, of course, isn't as threatening as Irelia, but he definitely does not die versus anyone, and he can beat Poppy. Poppy for sure will lose super hard versus the Irelia, but overall they are just put into a very bad scenario because they don't have anybody that can match the side waves. So what they need to do right now is quickly look for fights, but they're unable to really find anything because the people are just too tanky and they don't have enough crowd control to really get any picks off. They do finally use the Tahm Kench ulti to look for Urgot here, but as soon as he flashes away, it's basically doom now. Now they don't even have a way to make it so it's numbers advantage with the Tahm Kench ulti, and that was actually one of the first times that I've been seeing him actually use this ulti as a way of engagement or like picking off a side lane this entire game. Like, I've been looking for this type of play for this whole entire tournament long because he had Tahm Kench, but this is the first time that I actually see him actually trying to use the ulti to pick off one of the side laners who's splitting. So unfortunately it's way too late for that. I mean, we're 2 games in and they've already lost Baron inside of this game, so it looks like it's just going to be a clean 3-0 from them. They don't have any way to really stop Griffin from actually just pushing up really hard in all 3 lanes, and they don't have a way to really engage on anyone because they just don't have enough crowd control, and their team comp is just too far behind to really do anything. They don't have the best wave clear, the Baron buff is just too strong at this point, and they're just getting pressured all over the place. Even Ezreal is able to get some pretty good poke on a Jace here, but with the side lanes just constantly losing, there's actually nothing that really can contribute from getting that poke off. As you can see, even Poppy dies during the bot lane in a solo kill, so not only do they have Irelia just shoving up top constantly and they can't really handle it, but they also have just someone getting solo kill inside the bot lane. So the side lanes just have constant pressure, and even though they were able to get the Jace very chunked, it just doesn't really make anything happen. So then, because of this, Griffin just slowly take over the game and are eventually able to win it because GenG at this point need to engage, otherwise they are just going to slowly lose. So they look for a butchered engage, which of course is not going to work because it's so butchered and they're down a player, and because of this, Griffin is able to clean sweep GenG in a pretty convincing series. And basically, that's the end of the video. I hope you guys enjoyed watching this, and I continue to make more educational content more and more often, and definitely try to make it so it's not as long as this. So I apologize for anybody who actually made it this far that decided to go all the way to the end. I don't actually want to make videos that are this long. I actually want them to be kind of shorter, and I have a lot of plans to actually just maybe go over, rather than just whole entire games, although maybe some people enjoy this, also doing other formats such as doing just certain plays, like just going over how LCS Barons work, which will just show a bunch of different examples, but those videos are going to be much shorter than this one. So I hope you guys enjoyed the videos, and if you have any comments about what you think that I can improve on for next videos, please tell me, and don't forget to subscribe if you enjoy educational content and want to continue following my journey in trying to be a very good educational league YouTuber, and I will see you guys next time.